You have a responsibility because kids are watching you.
So, like, your kids. I'm not like about to pander to your kids or you. Like, what do you expect from that?
Well, you probably remember the alleged musical artist Lil Nas X, real name Montero Lamar Hill. He came onto the scene 5 years ago, marketing himself primarily to young children, performing at elementary schools and singing duets with Elmo. Then, after going out of his way to amass this audience of minors, Hill switched course dramatically and came out as gay and then started releasing ridiculously vulgar and graphically sexual songs and videos. Only a year after dancing on stage with the Sesame Street gang, Hill put out a music video where he performs a lap dance on Satan. So that kind of gives you an idea of the pivot here. There is, of course, nothing especially new and certainly nothing interesting about a pop star who makes obscene and deviant and stupid music. But Hill set himself apart as an especially creepy, predatory scumbag by taking the time to lure in an audience of elementary-aged children before making the pivot to the obscene and deviant and stupid stuff. Well, I should amend that, I guess, because his original single, Old Town Road, was definitely extremely stupid, but it wasn't overtly deviant or obscene. He saved that rebrand for later. And now Lil Nas X has reemerged, promising a new single that will be released on Friday titled J. Christ. As you've already predicted, given the title, Hill is going the sacrilege route this time around as he desperately begs for our attention. In the lead up to his crappy song coming out, he's put out a bunch of blasphemous images and promos. In one ad, he is seen crucified on a cross. Here's what that looks like.
You know I play the sacrilegious. Is he up to something only I know? Is he about to hit?
So there's that. In another, he is again dressed as Jesus while scarfing down the Eucharist and taking shots of communion wine. And then once again, he's on the cross, as you can see in this promo image, where he's on a cross being hoisted up. Don't worry, though, as the media insists, Lil Nas X is not trying to make a mockery of Jesus. Just because he's mocking Jesus doesn't mean he's trying to make a mockery of Jesus, you see. People.com reports Lil Nas X is leaning back into biblical imagery for his new era. On Monday, the Grammy winner unveiled the cover artwork for his upcoming single, J. Christ, featuring himself resembling Jesus on a cross, shortly before clarifying he's not looking to offend any religious group with the photo. Quote, "My new single is dedicated to the man who had the greatest comeback of all time," wrote Lil Nas X, 24 on X, alongside the J. Christ cover image and announcement. The Old Town Road performer then quoted a previous post claiming that his upcoming single features a very beloved pop star and said it was God. After reposting some fans' tweets expressing excitement for his new music, Lil Nas X took to the social media platform once again, less than an hour after sharing the J. Christ single cover, to clarify his motive. The crazy thing is, nowhere in the picture is a mockery of Jesus. He wrote, "Jesus' image is used throughout history in people's art all over the world." Lil Nas X continued, "I'm not making fun of S. Y'all just gotta keep trying to gatekeep a religion that was here before any of us were even born. Shut the F up." Well, yes, it's true. Jesus has been depicted in art for hundreds of years, but historically, he was depicted in a way meant to venerate and glorify him. There was a lot of Jesus-related art being produced in Europe in the 14th century, for example. But here's the thing. If you went back in time and showed people an image of yourself on the cross in 14th century Europe, or you showed yourself pounding shots of communion wine, well, you're going to have to explain that to the Inquisition, and it's probably not going to go well for you. And that's because this is obviously meant to ridicule Christianity and blaspheme Christ. And that's why, when I say that it won't go well for you, I mean that you'll be burned at the stake, just to be clear. But Hill, as usual, even though we don't have an Inquisition these days, lacks the courage to stand by his own provocations. He's a coward along with being a sacrilegious degenerate, and so he always does these things with a little bit of a wink and a nod and a little bit of I didn't really mean it offensively. Now, speaking of cowardice, that's the first point that many people make about this sort of thing. The first thing you can't help but notice is that whenever one of these pitiful attention whores decides to grasp for relevance by blaspheming a religion, they always choose the same religion. If you get all of your information about the world from Hollywood films and pop music, you might come to the conclusion that there's only one religion that exists on the entire planet. because there's only one that attracts their mockery and derision. But as it turns out, there are many other religions, including ones with billions of adherents. Yet these spineless frauds who want to be seen as bold and transgressive are very careful to only transgress the one world religion that you can get away with transgressing, the one you're allowed to disrespect while still being celebrated in the mainstream and accepted by our cultural elites and everything else. There's one religious group that you are allowed to offend without suffering any consequence whatsoever, and these brave and daring artists are very careful to stay safely inside that particular box. Why is that? Well, first, because people like Hill are, again, fraudulent cowards. They want to build a transgressive brand without doing or saying anything that actually is transgressive in our culture. I'm not sure there's much value in being shocking and offensive just for the sake of being shocking and offensive, but I know for sure that there's absolutely zero value in pretending to being shocking and offensive while studiously avoiding doing anything that our society actually deems shocking and offensive. It's one thing to be a shock jock. It's another thing to be a neutered, ballless little puppy pretending to be a shock jock. And that's the category that Lil Nas X falls into. But I must admit, we as Christians are not blameless here. The other reason that Christianity is the only mockable religion is that we have allowed it to be the only mockable religion. Hill will dress up like Jesus and pretend to be crucified, making a parody out of our most sacred image. But we all know that he would never in a million years even consider dressing up like Muhammad, for example. And why is that? Well, that's because Muslims simply will not tolerate that sort of disrespect. They just won't tolerate it. And that's why it doesn't happen. And there was a time many centuries ago when Christians wouldn't tolerate it either. But then Christianity in the West became infected with the disease of liberalism, and most of our leaders started preaching that tolerance is our greatest virtue. Never mind the fact that Jesus Christ himself never once called us to be tolerant, never talked about it, and in fact demonstrated forceful, even violent intolerance when he drove the money changers out of the temple with a whip. But that story, like so many others in both the Old and New Testament, isn't mentioned very often by our priests and pastors. Instead, they preach about some new, modern, totally invented version of Jesus who, from the way they tell it, would likely be a corporate DEI administrator if he was walking the earth today. We have become a weak and impotent church that tolerates ridicule, and so that's exactly what we get. But whatever the reason for this dynamic, the fact is that there is nothing provocative or new or bold or interesting about somebody making fun of Christianity or engaging in anti-Christian sacrilege. Being a husband, father, and host of my own show means life never slows down. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day. Sounds miserable and time-consuming. Frankly, I just don't want to do all that. I'd rather go get something deep-fried and unhealthy sometimes. Damn it. But with Balance of Nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables every day with 31 different whole fruit and vegetable ingredients. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze-dry them, turn them into a powder, and then turn them into a capsule from there. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and your body knows what to do with them. Simple as that. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com. Promo code Walsh. Well, the most shocking thing about the Grammy Awards last night was that apparently they're still doing the Grammy Awards. The second most shocking thing is that from what I read this morning, they gave the Song of the Year honor to Bonnie Raitt, who's a talented and soulful musical artist who actually deserves the recognition. She was able to go up to the stage by herself to accept the award because she wrote and performed the song herself. Compare that to, say, Beyonce, who needs 97 songwriters and 3,000 producers to manufacture her music through an assembly line-like process. But Bonnie Raitt is not the person we're supposed to be celebrating today. Our adulation is supposed to be focused primarily on the singers Kim Petras and Sam Smith. They're both white males, but their win is in the best pop duo category, is supposed to be a victory for diversity and inclusion, as these are white males who self-identify as something other than white males. Sam Smith claims to be non-binary, while Kim Petras identifies as a transgender woman, quote unquote. Here is Petras accepting the award and congratulating himself for his historic achievement. Listen.
Sam graciously wanted me to accept this award because I'm the first transgender woman to win this award. and I'm so... Thank you. And I just want to thank all the incredible transgender legends before me who kicked these doors open for me so I could be here tonight.
Well, he's not the first male to win the award. He's probably not the first male who dresses like a woman to win it, but he is the first male winner who claims to be a woman, and this is supposed to be a historic achievement. But here's a perhaps more interesting point about Kim Petras, born Tim Petras. He got gender reassignment, quote-unquote, surgery at the age of 16. In fact, back in 2009, the then aspiring pop star did a media tour where he was celebrated for having the courage to live as his true self with the aid of, genital mutilation and drugs and all the rest of it. Here's a clip from an interview on a British talk show back then. Listen.
But it's not just the scale of her ambition that makes young Kim very extraordinary.
Well, Kim was born Tim and is believed to be the youngest person in the world to have had a sex change. And she joins us now, and it's lovely to have you here. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
So you're born in 1992 in Cologne, in Germany.
Right.
And we've met a number of people who've been in a sort of similar position, who've sat where you're sitting, and all have said from the word go, there was no question that they knew precisely what they were. They were trapped in the wrong body.
It's right. I always knew it. When I was a little kid, I was always wanting pink dresses, Barbie, everything.
Well, there you have it. He liked pink dresses, he liked Barbie. Clearly proof that he was born in the wrong body, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean exactly. But his doctors couldn't give him a new body because such a thing is impossible. You can't have a new body. You only have the body that you're born with. All they could do is mutilate the one and the only body that he has or will ever have. And that's what they did at the age of 16. Now, keep this in mind when the left claims that these procedures aren't being performed on minors. One of the biggest, now Grammy award-winning pop stars in the country is a male who had his gender reassigned or confirmed, according to the updated euphemisms, as a minor. And this was back in 2009 when the medical guidelines were stricter than they are today, though obviously they were not nearly strict enough even then. Now, the song that won the award is aptly titled Unholy, and the two award-winning males performed it for the assembled audience after they won this award. Madonna, who with each passing day comes to more and more resemble the creepy puppet from the Saw franchise, introduced the duo, who then launched into a blatantly demonic performance. The whole thing was designed to look like some kind of satanic sex ritual with fire and devil horns and BDSM themes and Sam Smith dressed like Satan. Here's a clip, and make sure you pay attention all the way to the end of this clip. Watch.
The 65th Grammy Awards is sponsored by Pfizer.
The Satanic Ritual brought to you by Pfizer. Little too on the nose, I have to say. Now, needless to say, the main reason they went all in with the campy Party City devil costumes and demonic imagery and all of that is that they want attention. Sam Smith is the same guy who just released a music video that shows him parading around at a piss orgy drinking urine. He's desperate to be noticed and will do literally whatever it takes. He certainly can't rely on the quality of his music to speak for itself. I mean, putting aside the Satanist stuff, just listen to the lyrics from that Unholy song that we just heard a clip of. Lyrics. Mommy don't know daddy's getting hot at the body shop doing something unholy. He sat back while she's dropping it. She be popping it. Yeah, she put it down slowly. This is just absolute brain-rotting stupidity. These are alleged artists who have no art to offer, nothing to say, no talent, no creativity. And so they can only try to shock us. There's always been art with immoral messages. The difference is that in modern times, our immoral art is produced by the most tiresome collection
of monotonous, talentless, idiot hacks to ever walk the earth. As I said about Sam Smith's pee-guzzling music video, this stuff is indeed offensive and gross and disgusting, etc. It's all of that. But it's also utterly tedious and boring. These depraved attention mongers can't even manage to be offensive in an interesting way. Instead, they simply recycle the same shock tactics over and over again. And we've seen it all by now. As it turns out, there are only so many ways to be a satanic whore. After a while, it gets repetitive. And we are way past that point today.
Here's a guy who tries desperately to be shocking. Lil Nas X. He appeared on the Breakfast Club radio show. And one question that he gets a lot, and for good reason, is what about the kids? And the reason why he gets this question is because he started with that terrible song, Old Town Road, which was an awful song, a really stupid song. I can't even say that it was I'm saying it's awful and stupid as a song, but it was also inappropriate for kids if you look at the lyrics, but mainly it was just a really dumb song. But kids loved it, and he very intentionally marketed it to kids. He went to elementary schools and middle schools and performed it. He performed it on Nickelodeon and all of these things. And he intentionally garnered this audience of young children. And then did a bait and switch and started putting out graphic, satanic, literally satanic music. And he was asked about that on the Breakfast Club morning show. Here's his answer.
Parents would be like, you have a responsibility because kids are watching. You hear that Cardi B had that same problem and Nicki had that same problem. Do you feel that same way? Like, raise your own kids?
I feel like I used to, but now it's just like, so? Like f*** your kids. Not like f*** your kids.
That's exactly what you just said.
but like,
you just gave them another headline, Montero. Okay? What agenda is that? The f*** your kids agenda?
It's like, we really get one chance to do this, at least to my knowledge. I don't know like what happens when we die or not. So it's like I'm not like about to pander to your kids or you. Like anybody, like even I have to do this with my family members, like because my family members may not always agree with what I'm doing, or like whoever I'm dating, like they may not agree. But it's like I honestly, really, truly want to live by, this is our life. We get to do this. So what anybody else has to really say about it, I guess.
I would say when it comes to the music, just tell people that's the reason there's a parental advisory sticker.
That too
on the music.
Did you see the YouTube Kids thing? I don't know if you saw that.
Mm-mm.
There was like a lady. She like searched up music for babies.
Oh, I saw that, and they said
something like that. And then, like Industry Baby popped up, and she was like surprised. Like you looked up baby
and music.
Like what do you expect from that?
Yeah, like I'm gonna do what I want. And that's like what I'm just gonna do is what I want, and like that's how I'm gonna live. Like, what does it say about our culture that this guy with an IQ of 42? I mean, I've had Caesar salads at Applebee's that had a higher IQ than this guy, and he's a big star. And how did he get a big star? It's just like he wears dresses and walks around in dresses, and everyone goes, "Wow, it's revolutionary! He's a brilliant artist." Every male artist is wearing dresses now. Who was it? I think it was Russell Westbrook. NBA stars are now walking around in dresses. And they still want to convince us that this is some sort of brilliant, boundary-breaking thing. But his answer, so far as it could be translated and understood, was F your kids. And that's how he feels about it. These people are all, speaking of soulless, they're all soulless sociopaths. And they just simply don't care. They do not care about your kids. They feel no responsibility at all to anyone but themselves. They are, this is why it is so appropriate that he put out that satanic video where he's, twerking on Satan's lap, because although he meant it to be partly satirical or however he would justify it, he is a Satanist in that he belongs in the religion of himself. He is a self-worshiper, and he said it there very clearly. Nothing else in the world matters. Nobody else matters, only me.